Hello, everybody. My name is Adam, and I review things. I want to be the most prolific reviewer of all time. I review books, movies, podcasts, television shows, video games, whatever. Today I'm reviewing the Indian film Three Idiots, and that's all I'm going to tell you about it because I think that it is one of the worst films I have ever watched. Basically, the story is that there are these three engineering students who, they arrive at school to become engineers, and the story is in two parts. So, the first part is their sort of university career, and the second part is what happens after university. So there's one student who is poor and wants to be an engineering student to lift himself out of poverty. And then there's another student who doesn't want to be an engineer, but just is there because his family wants him to be an engineer. And then there's another student who basically is like the servant of some rich guy, and he has taken the place of this rich guy because the rich guy is kind of stupid, but this guy really likes engineering. So he'll go to university, study, and then the rich guy will get the degree. Which is a bit crazy, but anyway. The problems with the film are multiple. So I think the first thing is the clash of tone, because this movie is supposed to be this sort of optimistic, live life the way that you want sort of comedy. And there are two suicide attempts in the film. One is successful and is still a comedy, right? And I think and I don't want to say things that aren't true because this is just my opinion. It's just a review podcast, but it feels for me that Indian filmmakers, or at least these Indian filmmakers, didn't watch movies outside of Indian cinema because there is a long, 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 long history of movies like this in American cinema. Like it's a whole genre of, going to school, going to university, and fighting against like the establishment. There is Animal House, um, Revenge of the Nerds, which is not a great movie in retrospect, but Van Wilder, probably the most recent example of this. So it's an entire genre of film. And in none of those movies do I think that there is a suicide, an actual suicide. There's no suicides in those movies. Of course, in Revenge of the Nerds, there is some problematic stuff, but that's more connected to the culture of filmmaking in the 80s rather than what's actually happening in the film. So, yeah, it tonally clashes, and then they have like it's a musical kind of because they have a few musical numbers. One which is really really bad, but it's catchy. It's called All Is Well, and they don't say All Is Well, but they kind of really really mispronounce it because it's the motto of this one guy. And yeah, that musical number, it kind of sucked joy out of me rather than imbuing joy in me, if you know what I mean. There is like a love interest, and the love interest is played by, I guess, a very popular Indian actress. But basically, what happens is she, so the the carefree spirited one, the kind of carefree guy of the three idiots, the engineering student, he basically meets her, and she's the daughter of the dean. and she is going to marry this guy who's very materialistic. And he says, like this carefree guy, "Oh, did you know he's very materialistic?" And she's like, "Oh, I did not know that. I didn't know that he's very materialistic. What a shocker." And then later, so she needs a man to tell him that this relationship's not going to work. And then later, that guy disappears, the carefree guy disappears. So she's about to marry the materialistic guy again. And then again, these other two idiots come along and say, "Hey, did you know that that guy is still materialistic?" And she's like, "I didn't know that." And then uh, she runs away. So that's basically all the romance between those two characters. And the movie is like 3 hours long, more than 3 hours long. If you're going to watch it, I don't recommend it, but maybe break it up into parts, because the second part, I did that. Second part is much more entertaining if you've forgotten what happened in the first part, honestly. Yeah. And about the suicide, so they're in an engineering school, and the guy who commits suicide has a project to build a drone. And he goes to the dean and says, like maybe a month before, that he needs an extension because he can't figure out how to work this drone thingy. And the dean is like, "No, you have enough time." And because he runs out of time, he commits suicide. And so that's the first suicide attempt. The second suicide attempt is like the I don't even remember what happens, but basically one of the idiots, the poor one, they steal the test for like the final exam questions for plot reasons. So they steal the exam, and then they get caught peeing on the dean's door. So they get rusticated, which is basically like being suspended from university. So they get rusticated, and they can't finish. Yeah, so maybe those two things happened at different times. So anyway, they pee on the door, they get caught, and they get rusticated, and then he tries to commit suicide, right? So if you pee on somebody's door and you are caught, there are going to be consequences. If you are an engineer, you have a budget, you have a schedule, you have deadlines you have to meet. And I understand what the point of the movie is. The point of the movie is like, okay, we are being too paternalistic with our children, and we need to like learn to listen to what they actually want. And that's great, right? But you can't say like deadlines are signs of paternalism, or consequences for stupid actions that you make are signs of paternalism. Because, okay, if you go and somebody is selling, I don't know, mangoes on the street, and you don't like that guy, and you steal his mangoes, you still committed a crime, right? You still deserve to be punished. Yeah, and that's even worse than other motivations for crimes or bad behavior that you might have, right? So if you had to steal the mangoes because you're starving or something, that's a different conversation than the one we're having in this movie. And it's over a long, the acting is bad, and I really don't understand why it's so popular in India. And I'm starting to think that modern Indian movies are not my thing because I watched 13th Fail. I didn't like it. I didn't like Three Idiots. So maybe there'll be a movie an Indian movie that I really, really like. So yeah, that's what I think about that. I've been brutally honest about my feelings about uh, Three Idiots. What do you think? Did you like this movie? Maybe try to defend it in the comments, and people will argue with you. I won't argue with you. I'm really curious if anybody actually liked this movie. And if they did, why? Why they did. All right, that's my review. I'm trying to get to a point where I have 150 subscribers by the end of January. I have 121 now, so I think it's completely feasible to do that. So if you like my content, please like and subscribe, leave a comment. And if you're a super fan of what I do, please check out my Patreon. Thank you very much. It's in the show notes or in the description of the video. Bye bye.